guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're brand new here, my name is Stav and this is Mac, and this is my channel, She Equips Herself. If you saw my last video, you know that I did a giveaway where I'm giving away 2 palm pepper sprays to 2 different winners. And those winners that have been randomly chosen are The Silliest and Lisa B. So congratulations, I'm going to contact you guys so that you can get your pepper sprays. I also want to say that we're going to be doing a Q&A with Mac. So if you guys have any questions that are specific for Mac, please leave them in the comments below and we'll answer those in a future video. For today's video, we're going to be talking about the differences between going to the range and shooting versus training for self-defense.
A lot of comments we've gotten, and a big difference that I've seen in my shooting career as an instructor and as a shooter myself is there's a dramatic difference in what happens during a gunfight and what people practice at the range. I mean, if you YouTube, Active Self-Protection is probably the top site. If I can give you one site, I'd say you should all be members of Active Self-Protection. The host of that name is John Correa, and he does a great job of breaking down all different types of self-defense situations. He does law enforcement, he does civilian, he does it all. And he breaks it down legally and tactically, and he does a great job. But what you get to see, even if you mute everything he says, you get to see real life self-defense situations happening in real time with real people. So what you'll see is you will see a whole bunch of stuff that you never see when you go to a standard gun range. And there's a big disconnect there between what people do at the gun range, then what they think they're capable of, and then what actually happens in real life. And it comes up all the time. And the best way I can explain it is if you think back to like 1980s karate. Now I grew up in the 80s, I'm older than stuff. So you would actively see this. Like you would see people like standing there like this in a row. It's true. Like you'd see them standing, and they like the sensei would go here, and everyone would go yeah, and then they'd come back to this, and they'd be like yeah, yeah, like stuff like that. Like if you ever saw that in a real fight, you know that's the loser. Like put your money on the other guy. You cannot win a fight like this, throwing like downward angle punches from a static standing position and expect to win a fist fight or a fight. That's not like good self-defense. Now there might have been a lot of reasons why they established that, but you like to think that if someone had like some sort of belt in karate, even back in the 80s, they could actually defend themselves. And it wasn't quite the case. There was no real contact back then. You know, and now you look at like MMA and like how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and all the new martial arts that people study on a regular basis now that are so much more advantageous to actually surviving a street fight. Nobody does the stand still in the middle of the dojo karate thing anymore because it has proven to be extraordinarily ineffective. But people still do the exact same thing at the gun range, where they show up at a gun range and they stand perfectly still and their target is perfectly still, and they do a whole bunch of things that really don't ever happen in a gunfight, just like doesn't actually happen in a fist fight. And they never graduate. They never go, oh yeah, this is just shooting. This is just learning how to shoot and just learning the principles of marksmanship. And they never actually take it to the next level. And a big reason is most gun ranges don't like you to take it to the next level or don't allow you to take it to the next level. So what we did with this video is we did some real basic, I like to think this is part 1. This is like self-defense versus shooting part 1. I absolutely have a whole bunch of things in my mind that I want to do with Stav on this subject matter. But this is your basic entry-level stuff on things that you might be able to get away with at your gun range without getting tossed out, because there's a lot of rules at gun ranges, I realize. So we're going to break down the differences between shooting and self-defense training at the absolute lowest level, and you will see another video on this at some point, probably in the next like 2 weeks, where we can take it to the next step. But this is where you might want to start and just start getting comfortable. So looking at this first video, what you're going to see is, you know, Stav is going to put her target all the way down the end, always, as far as it can go. And you see that all the time. And what you should know is Most gunfights occur within 10 feet. They're very up close, personal. Then you're gonna see, you know, a bunch of other things in this video. She's got the gun on the table. So she's picking it up, she's loading, she's looking down, she's not looking up, then she looks up. Nice, deep, relaxed breath. Closes an eye, slowly shoots now. You can see her recoil management. She's not in any rush to put that gun back on target. She's shooting, I mean, she's probably shooting faster than most people. She's shooting pretty slow, but still pretty quick. She's shooting. You can see the gun's kind of jumping in her hand. Now she puts the gun back down on the table. She's bringing her target back because she's proud of her work and she wants to see how she did. She didn't look left or right. She's got no concern about that she's in a fight or anything like that. She's just enjoying the gun range. And you see that all the time. There's really nothing wrong with that if that's your intent. The problem is people do this and then they think they're self-defense shooters and they're missing a huge part. So it doesn't matter if you're shooting a semi-automatic or a revolver if your style of shooting is just range shooting. You can see Stav here puts the target all the way down. Again, the gun comes from the table, not a holster. She's using loose ammunition, which you see all the time. Revolver shooters are famous for this. I mean, semi-automatic shooters do it too, where they load their magazine, then they insert their magazine from the firearm, send the slide forward, and then shoot it right away, not using a holster, not reloading from a mag pouch they have in their body. But it would be nice if she just had a speed loader and just was loading speed loads, because that's more consistent. Once again, she's not moving, the lights are perfectly on. She's gonna shoot single action here, which generally never happens in a gunfight. She's relaxed, she's breathing, she's not mad.
That's what you think.
She's just enjoying her time at the gun range. And again, no problem with that if that's your goal. Just don't think this is self-defense training and you're all set, because then you know, okay, I gotta do a lot more work than this, because the bad guy's just not gonna stand that nice and still in this well-lit environment, not try to hurt you at all. You can stand there and do all sorts of slow things. Put the gun down, don't reholster, don't look left and right, don't worry about other people wanting to harm you. Just bring your target in and be proud of how you shot. One-hand shooting is important. If you watch real gunfights, you'll see a lot of one-handed operation, but you might see something like this at the gun range, where they have this like weirdo sideways funny stance. It's a 1968, you know, bullseye competition, and you're gonna shoot single action at 50 feet. Another thing you're gonna see now, like this is the season for this, is people will be at the gun range and maybe in theory they're practicing some self-defense shooting and they're wearing their concealment, and they'll take off their concealment and then they'll shoot an open gun. You could just see the holster, so she's not moving clothing out of the way. She's doing a bunch of other things like standing still, but you know, she's got the holster work now, but it's improper holster work. She wears concealment all the time, not an open gun, and you see people do that all the time. Here's another thing to discuss, and this came out in our last video, how you clear a malfunction. So shooters usually, they shoot, when they run into a malfunction, a lot of them have been trained to wait 5 seconds. So they'll look at the gun, they'll make sure it's clear, they'll eject that round, they'll still look at the gun like they can see something, like they're magical. Then they'll go back to shooting. There's no rush. They're adhering to that wait 5 seconds on a hang fire thing. Again, that's fine. It's actually a safe practice while shooting, but that is bad training for life and death stuff. You don't look at the gun, think about what's wrong with the gun, finally decide to clear the gun improperly. She never hit the bottom of the magazine, and then kind of look at it again and then go back to shooting. It's a bad habit and bad practice. A lot of what we just showed is bad habits and bad practice. And a lot of what we're going to show you now is not a solution to the problem. It's just a step in the better direction. And as I said before, we're going to show you more and more of this to get you up to speed with actual self-defense training. But this is just an intro. There was other people at the range this day, and we were dealing with other people, and this is some things you can actually get done.
Okay, so you guys are gonna see Mac here is putting the target at a more realistic distance. He put it at about 20 feet, and instead of having a bullseye target, he has a target that's more of a silhouette shape. So it's a little more realistic, and he's gonna move on the draw. Even if you're in a bay like that, you should still be moving at least a little bit just to get your body used to it. He looks and then he holsters the gun again. And he's drawing right out of his concealment as well. He didn't remove his shirt that he has over his holster at all. He's shooting right out of his concealment. So now Mac is simulating a situation where he'd need to shoot one-handed, but he's starting off with two hands because that's when you need to transition to one. And you can see he's still in that same shooting position because he's not going to get into some side weirdo stance while he's shooting. So he's still shooting in the same stance even though he's shooting with one hand. So in that first situation, Mac's other hand got injured, so he had to transition to his right hand. But in this situation, he's doing something with his left hand, so he needs to do everything with just his right hand. Transitioning from your dominant hand to your non-dominant hand would not really occur in real life. If you're shooting with your non-dominant hand, it's because something happened to your dominant hand and you need to pick that gun up. So maybe it got shot or something, or it got injured. So Mac just picked up the gun with his left hand, that's his non-dominant hand, and that's how he does his drill. You'll also notice that when Mac is shooting, he's got both eyes open. He's not taking a deep breath or anything, and he's shooting pretty fast, which is more realistic than what you guys saw me doing.
So in real life, standing still in a gunfight's a bad idea. I know most gun ranges force you to do it, but this is kind of demoing, you know, using cover and taking a different position. The range only allows you to shoot from above the table. So the only position I can do is a kneeling position. So firing a few rounds standing and then moving to cover and firing a few rounds from behind cover in a kneeling position. I'm just practicing that.
So here we're gonna see Mac work through a malfunction. If you have a malfunction while you're shooting, work through it, because in real life you're not gonna have the time to look at your gun and figure out what's wrong. You're gonna have to work through it fast. So you saw there, he just cleared the malfunction and kept on shooting.
Another thing you hardly ever see at a shooting range is a tactical reload. So you still have ammunition in your gun, you fire a few rounds, that target is down, but you want to get more rounds up in the fights just in case something else happens. So you do a tactical reload and then replace that one magazine you have, and then you're ready to go. So now the next time you need your gun, you're topped off and ready to go. So a lot of people have trouble with the two eyes open thing. So if you have trouble with it, this doesn't all have to come overnight, but when I shoot within 20 feet, I hardly ever use what's like a standard sight picture. I'm more or less instinctive shooting or point shooting. I'm looking at the target. I might be aware that my sights are like involved in that situation. I'm not deliberately ignoring them, but I'm certainly not focused on my front sight, nice keen focus there. And that's come from years and years and years of shooting where I'm very confident with that capability. But in real life, you're not really going to use your sights. You're usually going to look directly at the threat. So it's something you absolutely want to start practicing as well, which is why that one eye closed, deliberate sight picture is just paper shooting. But, you know, work your way into that, and, you know, eventually what you can do is do both. With two eyes open, you'll have a great, clear, perfect sight picture, so you can shoot really well-placed, well-aimed shots. And with two eyes open, you can see the threat really well, and you can look directly at the threat and be, you know, hitting well-placed shots as well. So that two eyes open thing, it sometimes takes people a while, but once they get it, they get it. The way I've always explained it is, you know, if you've ever seen one of those pictures on the wall that's like all this digital dots, and it just looks like digital dots, you can't see anything. And as you defocus your eyes and you kind of stare at the thing long enough, you're like, oh look, a sailboat, and you can see that there's like sailboat within the picture or whatever it is. Well, once you see that sailboat once, you can see it like every time. Well, once you teach yourself how to shoot two eyes open, your eyes will figure it out and you can do it every time. But the learning curve is there, just like when you're looking at that painting or that picture and you can't see what's going on in that picture for a while. It takes a little bit to get there.
Another thing you guys might have noticed when I was shooting is that in the beginning I was shooting a target gun, a gun that I wouldn't normally carry, but something that I like to shoot just for fun. And that's okay if you like to go to the range and shoot a bunch of different guns because it's fun. It is fun and that's fine, but if you're gonna carry a gun for self-defense, it's most important to train with that gun frequently, more than you do all the other guns, so that when you need to use it, if you ever need to use it, you'll be proficient and fast with it.
I see that all the time, just to add into this, and there's been many times where a student has contacted me before and the name of the class would be concealed carry and then give it a number. And they said, hey, which gun should I bring? And my first response is always, your carry gun. Like, the name of the class is concealed carry. We're not, you know, that's what we're doing here. We're turning how to become better self-defense shooters. And one time I had this conversation with a guy and he contacted me and said, what type of gun should I bring? I said, your self-defense gun. He said, well, I have, and he kind of gives me the listing of all these guns, and I have to go back and say, well, which one do you carry? And he said, well, the one I carry the most, and I think it was a J-frame revolver, I said, okay, that's the one you want to bring then. He goes, but I don't shoot that one well. I'd rather bring my Glock 34. I said, do you carry your Glock 34? He said, no, it's too big to carry. I said, then why would you want to bet your life on a gun that you can't shoot well? Why do you want to bring the J-frame revolver if you know you don't shoot it well and you're too embarrassed to shoot in front of a class of 14, 15 people with that gun because you know you're not going to shoot it well, yet you're going to bet your life and your family's life on it? That makes no sense. Become proficient and comfortable with your carry gun. I hardly ever shoot any of my guns other than my duty gun and my carry gun. I shoot 2 guns all the time, and everything else is like always itching to get a chance to go to the range, but it hardly ever goes. And when it does go, it just gets that range fun. It doesn't get self-defense training. It was just nice to get the Python and the 1911 out just to get them dirty. Yeah. But we hardly ever shoot them. They're safe queens, and that's fine to have those. But make sure that the tool you bet your life on is the one you're good and proficient with, and practice the most with those. If
your range limits the kind of training that you can do, like you can't shoot from positions or anything like that, or maybe you can't shoot out of a holster, Mac always recommends to do training with a BB gun or something like that where you can practice in your basement.
We will do a video on how to do a tremendous amount of self-defense training using airsoft or BB guns in your garage or in your basement. Maybe we'll do that as one of our next videos. I'll show you how to build a target, and I'll just get right down into it, and you will be amazed at how high a level of training you can get using airsoft or BB guns. I would tell people, and I tell people all the time, if you own an airsoft gun and a BB gun, and you practice gunfighting with that tool, and you hardly ever even shoot your real gun, you're still going to be way better off than someone that goes to the gun range and just does target shooting with their gun. The skills you learn, you still have to shoot your real gun when you get a second, but the skills you learn using those tools are very important, and gun ranges are very strict on what you actually need to know how to do to survive a gunfight. So great idea to have a pellet gun, a BB gun, or an airsoft gun that's similar to your real gun, and doing actual legitimate self-defense training with that tool.
Another thing you can do is see if there are classes near you where you can take concealed carry live fire classes like the ones that Mac teaches. Those are really helpful, so if you have something like that, definitely look into them. That's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe, and please comment down below any questions you might have for Mac's Q&A that's gonna be coming up. That should be a lot of fun. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye!